Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to drive smarter with high-tech features and excellent reliability. Check out the Honda Civic, Accord, or HR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.99% APR on a 2025 Civic or a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Accord or HR-V.
See dealer for financing details. Exclude Civic Si and Type R.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. We're back. This is the fourth pod we have done since the international break began. The first one, though, Brendan, we have actual FPL to get into, which I'm excited about. We have a midweek, so right off the bat, just quick, if this is, if you've completely checked out in this podcast, just hit your feet for the first time, and actually we've been doing pods. I don't know what we've been talking about. Yeah, we've been doing a lot.
You're a liar, listener.
Yeah. But if you're, yeah, exactly. But if you are like just now checking back into fantasy, please note there are games on Tuesday. It's a midweek, so you have FA Cup matches this weekend. Obviously, that had a big impact on the rest of the season. Just like old times, you have the FA Cup semifinals, and that means there are teams that were scheduled to play on those weekends that now have rescheduled fixtures. And we don't actually have as much clarity as I kind of hoped we would have, but we do have our very smart people who look at this stuff and make best guesses. We've got
some outside firms that are working on this around the clock for us.
They have consistently proven themselves to be worth listening to, right? So I think we can rely on them. Thank you to Ben Crellin and Lego Mane and all the other hardworking souls out there who do the hard work to figure this stuff out. Because I was looking through Ben's notes ahead of this, like it is hard. Like it is not easy. It's like you are literally reading through press releases from clubs trying to, read tea leaves and stuff like that. And somehow it's like, if you do enough of this across enough different venues, you get what we have empirically found to be like an accurate picture of what's actually going to happen. And obviously they will like formally announce all this stuff at some point, but it's pretty important to know if a team's going to be playing twice or blank, in the upcoming weeks. Obviously we know some of these teams are going to blank. We don't know which game weeks it's going to happen, right? So if you know when it's going to happen, it has a major impact on your transfer strategy, right? So the earlier you can kind of come to some conclusions about this, the better the better off you are, and you might have an edge on some people who aren't paying as much attention.
We've been left in a funny spot coming into the game week 30 deadline, though. We know it's almost like a situation that you see in fantasy a lot, where you have just enough information to shoot yourself in the foot. Yeah. As you say, the picture, despite everyone's best efforts, is not crystal clear as to how the doubles and blanks will shake out. Yeah. So what we're trying to solve for in this episode is basically bare essentials of what you need to do for game 30, game week 30. And then B, what do we need to really know to strategize for the rest of the season in terms of chip strategy? You and I both have all of our chips, save the assistant manager chip. What does this mean? Yeah. And I think also the biggest thing right now for game week 30, a lot of people are thinking of, well, maybe I should be wild carding. There is a lot of injury news that I think maybe you and I need to take a temperature check on, namely Haaland, Palmer, and Chris Wood. And I think these three guys are huge factors in terms of whether you want a wild card, whether you want to wait, what is what is your captaincy strategy for game week 30 and beyond.
What is the latest with Cole Palmer, by the way? That is the one that I have not. Maybe I'm getting ahead of us a little bit here.
Yeah, I guess just we don't have clarity on it. And the latest is he's not been pictured in training, but coming out of an international break, what exactly does that mean?
Right.
And I think he's been abroad. He was pictured at a hotel in Dubai or some such place. And it's kind of unclear what he's been up to.
It's like he might have been in training on the 28th, which would be encouraging. So
yeah. He I think is the worst. I think he's the least of our concerns, given that Chelsea do not play until Thursday. I mean, this Chelsea Spurs game is kind of outrageous from a scheduling point of view, and that all these other teams played this weekend.
Right.
And Chelsea and Spurs have been twiddling their thumbs, and they get this stay of execution until Thursday. But I think he's got still quite a bit of time from us recording,
especially because they still have Europe as well, right? Mm-hmm. So. I don't know. Yeah, we're in like the complicated season. So let's, but I don't know. I think we should just get into some details here, right? Like let's get down to brass tacks, as it were, Brandon. You know what that expression comes from? We talked about this before.
Yes, it's from upholstering furniture.
That's right. We have talked about it probably many times. For all I know,
just the once. Yeah. I think that's fair. That's fair. You clearly came into that piece of knowledge relatively recently, and you're very excited to share.
No, I actually think it was through this pod at some point. But it is fun to think about. It's one of those things. Once you learn it, it's like a fun fact that you do want to share as often as possible. It's like once Brandon, you want to tell it to the whole. It's like falling in love. Getting down to brass tacks is
you're like Tom Cruise on Oprah's couch talking about Katie Holmes.
I am. Yeah, exactly. I want to jump up and down on that. I want to get down to brass tacks through my jumping up and down, Sure. All right. Well, anyway, so we had FA Cup this weekend, back from the international break. Of course, as we kind of expected, all of the injured, I'm using quotation marks here, players were back in some capacity, which I'm sure I suspect Cole Palmer will be the same. So Villa won 3-0. I guess I'm kind of going backwards here. I'm doing Sunday and then Saturday, but it's fine. So sure. Villa won 3-0. Rashford had a brace. Watkins, who had been an injury doubt, came off the bench, so I think we can kind of clear him now. I don't see any reason to think that this is a long-term Watkins benching. I know you have not been thrilled with his performance this season, but I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that he is now a squad bench player. Certainly, especially if they plan to try to sign him for a long-term contract, this summer.
I wonder if they just plan to sell him in the summer, and it's just kind of like c'est la vie.
I don't know. I don't think so.
The most interesting thing about the Rashford brace in the FA Cup against Preston was that he took a pen with Marco Asensio on the pitch. Now, Asensio has taken a pen for Villa, and there is some question of, who's the number one pen taker? Yeah, is it Watkins? Is it Asensio? Is it Rashford? Well, Rashford is getting closer to having the primacy there, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, another player though, it's like, are they? I guess they'll try to re-sign him. Like, I don't know. It's sort of he's been good.
Why would he go back to United? It seems like Not that would not be the preferred move if you're Marcus Rashford.
No, that's true. I mean, I almost wonder if they just if I'm them though. I mean, it doesn't feel sustainable with him, does it? It's like he's sort of like he's got to be like I feel like he should just go on loan for the next 10 years, right? This is like every year he should go on loan to a new club, and that will keep him motivated enough to play hard all the time, right? Because I agree. I don't think going back to Man United, but can't you just see him signing like a 4-year deal with Villa this offseason, and then like you never hear from him again, basically?
I think you get one good season out of Rashford heading into the World Cup, because surely his goal is to make the England squad, right?
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about the World Cup aspect of it. So maybe. Well, anyway, I think Rashford is still off our radars, FPL wise, at least. Or at least in all ways, Rashford is off our radar. I'm not picking the England squad. Yeah. So I think that's the big news from the Villa match. Bournemouth was a little more interesting. You had Haaland, who missed a pen, then he scored, then he was spotted on crutches. So we kind of got the whole everything with Haaland in this match. Marmoush, another goal, had the game winner in this match. Evan Nilsson scored, and Utara was benched again. Now, you could possibly argue that an Utara bench, if you still have him in your team as I do, you could argue that an Utara benching is could mean that he is, has a better chance of starting at midweek. I don't know. I'm not sure that I totally buy that. I mean, the problem is Bournemouth still have a chance at a European spot, so I don't think they can just, they basically just have to play their best team for everything at this point. Would be my feeling about that.
Yeah. David Brooks started essentially in his place. And then we've seen Tavernier start in that position as well. Just a lot of options. Yeah, the Dango problem needs to be solved if you still have them.
I know. My team is a mess going into 30. Like it's a real, and obviously we're going to talk about wildcard in a second, but it's a real question for me about what I do. And I'm happy to walk through that with you in a second.
Please, good. Yeah.
But first, Marmoush, I mean, very much on the radar now, I think, if he wasn't before, from an FPL perspective. I mean, he's just having, I think I made this analogy before, but it's reminiscent of when Bruno joined Man United at midseason a few years ago, that sort of January transfer who just kind of explodes out of the gate. Right. And I feel like he's just been it's felt like it sort of feels like, I mean, maybe you're always rolling the dice with the transfer a little bit, and it feels like they've struck out like the last 5 times, and this time it finally kind of worked out for them, right?
Yeah, I think so too. He will be playing in the 9 presumably with Haaland injured,
out, right?
So however long he is, and we'll talk about City a bit because they will benefit FPL wise going into the FA Cup semifinals, as they will double. They will have a double game week.
Yeah, exactly. So that which makes the Haaland thing a little trickier, obviously, because we just don't have any clarity at the moment on where we are with him. I mean, granted, like the Man United staff probably don't know either at this point. Fulham lost 3-0 to Palace. A little more of a shellacking than I would have expected. Mateta back from injury, had this, I don't know if you saw the Mateta like mask that he had on. Yeah. It was the ear mask. I've never seen a mask, like a face mask, quite like that before. It was sort of unique the way it was.
Yeah, as it was just covering the ear, I suppose. The point of damage. It looked odd. And
it did look a little.
His performance was kind of quiet. I mean, Eze really did just shine brightly in that match, and Fulham completely receded and got their, like, Joachim Andersen has got to be replaced this summer. It's turned into a bit of a joke transfer from Palace to Fulham, unfortunately. That said, there's just like so much to love about this Palace team fantasy wise. As a feeling it is always a great welcome sight. Sarr scores again, I think his 4th match in all competitions in a row.
He's been great.
Another clean sheet. Munoz again attacking. There's a lot of options with Palace.
Yeah. And I'm kind of, depending on what, I don't know. I've been thinking about Palace a fair amount. Because you can cast your mind back several weeks ago, Brandon, but I did, I brought in Eze in game week 28 with the idea that I would free hit in 29. I kind of had to, given all the injuries in my squad. It was not an optimal strategic move, but something that I kind of just, I had to personally do for my team. But I brought in Eze with the thought that, well, I'll get him for 28 and then I'll get him for 30 for this Ipswich match. I'm still not sure how many Palace players I kind of want in my squad, right? Like if I were trying to hold off on wildcarding, right, until, I don't know, 33 or 34, for example, wait. Then you can make an argument for maybe just having like 2 Palace players. I mean, their double is just not a great double, right? They're away to Man City, away to Newcastle. So, I mean, even given that they might be the best team in the Premier League right now in terms of their like current form, but it's still like 2 of the worst fixtures you can have, right? Away to Man City. And
the thing though is they have the potential, Palace do, of doubling twice in 32 and again in 33, a la Liverpool a while back. And this is regardless of the fixtures, and that would be Arsenal away in that other double. It still just could be the dice worth rolling. Okay. So I
know what you mean.
And I think like your strategy now with Palace, I just feel like loading up on Palace now and then offloading them once we get to the blank in game week 34 feels right. I mean, they finished the season at Anfield. They'll probably know exactly where they stand at that point. They could very well blank in 37. So in a way, if you were interested in holding off your wild card, it's sort of like bring in as many Palace guys, bring in 3, and then wild card them all out. When you get to 34.
Yeah, but I guess I just mean like specifically for 32 with the really tricky double away. Would you want like 2 defenders, for example? Like,
no,
that doesn't feel ideal, right? And having 2 attackers, maybe that's fine. Like I could see them scoring in both those matches, like Mateta and Eze, or Sarr, Mateta.
Mm-hmm.
Eze, Mateta, I suppose, like with the assumption that like if they're going to score goals, one of those 2 will be involved in the goal.
Yeah, and Munoz is a double threat. He's the most attacking fullback at this point in the season. Yep. So I feel like he's definitely a gamble that's well worth taking. So go 3 with Munoz, Sarr, Mateta, Munoz, Eze, Mateta. Yeah, basically 1 from each position.
And they both offered something today, a Sarr goal, and then Eze had a goal and assist. So, quite a lot. From a Fulham perspective, Robinson, who was an injury doubt, didn't play with the U.S. men's team over the international break. He played 70 minutes. Raul came off the bench, so presumably he will start in the Arsenal match.
Definitely.
So, as they kind of make their kind of late Champions League push, right? And so they'll be presumably trying to play for like a tight draw in that Arsenal match, just get out of there with a point. Mm-hmm. And then Brighton Forest, kind of a tough situation for Forest right now. Forest did win on pens, but Wood didn't play. I was kind of like, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal that he had this kind of hip injury, but because it was just a bad fall. But the comments after the match made it sound like it was like he was just like in so much pain, right? Mm-hmm. So he didn't even make the 18. I think there has to be a strong doubt over whether he starts at midweek, which probably pushes some people who are like on the fence about wildcarding into that wild card because it's just one more player. Like if you have like Trent, for example, like I have Trent, like his injury is actually like incredibly annoying from a like figuring out what to do with my team perspective, right? Because I just basically don't have any good defenders. Like I would say that I would be feeling much if I had a full week to do my wild card, I'd feel a lot better about it. I think it's the fact that I have like a day and a half that sort of Yeah, I mean, because yes, in theory we had 2 full weeks, right, because of the international break, but you couldn't do any real thinking about it until the FA Cup because you had to figure out what the schedules look like, right?
Yeah, it's almost like studying for an exam, but your professor doesn't tell you what to study for until the day before the exam.
Exactly. And
not
so it's
that
like
we needed a metaphor there, but
but it's but it's still. So Wood could be out. Morgan Gibbs White also went out. I don't think that's as big of a deal, but he was Nuno did say after the match that was injury, like he was forced because of injury. So just in general, Forest are in kind of a tough spot, I would say. Slightly, I mean, I don't know, like I would expect them to win when they play Man United on Tuesday, but certainly not the easiest of matches, right? And so, if they don't have Wood and Gibbs White, I think that they're in a pretty tough spot for that match. I mean, those are they're 2. They have plenty of talent, right? Like Awani and a number of players have kind of stepped up for them this season. But I do think I think that suddenly turns into a pretty tricky fixture. I think if they don't have those 2 players.
Yeah, don't love Forest at this point.
Yeah,
and their fixtures are just not awesome.
Yeah,
regardless through the rest of the season, they've got some potential double opportunities coming, but still, I wonder. You talked about Fulham playing tightly against Arsenal. I'm not sure that Fulham really know how to do that, but this Forest team certainly do. And the closer they get to the end of the season, clinching that top 4, top 5 position, I think the tighter and tighter they're going to get. Yeah. So I kind of I still
100%.
I like their defenders and cells way more than Wood and Gibbs White and Alenga and Hudson Odoi at this point now. Just kind of like thinking about that as a strategy.
Yeah, I mean, Alenga, it feels like he's really shined too when Forest have been like missing kind of any of their talismanic players, right? So I think that he's a really interesting option. I think, still kicking myself for not having him for game week 29 when I free hit. So they go through. I think it's leads to a pretty fun FA Cup semifinal too. I think it's I don't actually have it in front of me here, but I believe is it Villa, Man City, and Palace Forest. I think that's what it is, right?
It's Palace, Villa, and Forest City.
Palace, Villa, and Forest City, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I think like it could be kind of. I mean, first of all, the semifinals are both good. And I think no matter what combination of those four we get for a final, that should lead to an interesting final too.
No doubt.
All right, so that's where we are. Let me share. This is the latest chart from our friend Ben Krellen. Now, this is like all kind of predicted stuff, and I realize people listening to the podcast can't see this, and so I'm not going to talk like everyone can see it, but I'm sharing it, Brendan, so that you can take a look at it as we talk here. So what we know is, what we knew before is that in game week 32, right? It's a couple weeks. I guess it's like a week and a half from now. Crystal Palace will play twice. They'll play away at Man City, away at Newcastle. Newcastle double. They host Man United and Crystal Palace. What we think will happen, right, is that Crystal Palace will then have another double in game week 33. Man City will likely have a double as well. Villa, same thing. And the doubles the double is not great for Crystal Palace for 32, but it's pretty good for 33. It would be Bournemouth. It's better anyway. I guess it's not good. But it's they do play twice. It's Bournemouth at home and Arsenal away. Man City, Everton away, Villa at home. Villa, also good chance of doubling in 33. It'd be Newcastle and Man City. So another kind of a tricky one there. Newcastle at home, though, so that's a little bit better. And then Arsenal will have probably the best double, potentially again. They would play Ipswich and Crystal Palace. Of course, Arsenal are also the toughest team to get any kind of read on, but that's kind of where we stand right now.
It feels like double Arsenal defense is the move if you're wild carding right now. And the drafts I'm seeing, like on the Always Cheating Discord or online, where are the Arsenal defenders? If you're not having Haaland or Cole Palmer in your wild card, you should be able to afford like anybody at that point.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and they're not even that expensive. I mean, even like some of the players who've had like small price rises on Arsenal, whereas like even Timber's only at 5.6 million. That's not crazy, right? That's a very like reasonable price. So I think for me, like when I look ahead to 33, I've got 2 Palace players, 1 Man City, 1 Villa, no Arsenal at the moment. And then there's like a outside chance that Forest and Brentford both have doubles in 33 as well. So though that Ben considers that unlikely. So I do think it's tricky. I think the thing that I have to sort of figure out, one of the reasons why I think it's sort of sensible for me to wild card in 30, but I have to really make sure that I'm smart with my planning, is that if we get all of these doubles in 33, 4 of those, like basically all of the teams that double in 33 will then not play in 34, right? Mm-hmm. So if I kind of go all in on those 4 clubs, I am in a very tricky spot for 34 because I don't have my free hit available anymore because I had to play it in 29. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like the only kind of club that I would really want to be kind of all in on is Newcastle, right? Because they have the double in 32. And thankfully they do they do host Ipswich in 34, which is kind of like having a double, right? It's like a double worthy kind of fixture. So so I can kind of, if I'm wild carding now and I don't have a free hit, like if I'm listening to the podcast right now and you're sort of like you are in the same spot as me, I think the one thing I've got to do is have 3 Newcastle on my wild card because they're the one team that can I can sort of attack the double in 32 and then sort of be okay in game week 34, right? So that would be sort of a big priority for me if I was putting together a team. So that's kind of where I am right now. What about What about you? Like, what are you thinking?
I have no earthly idea. I'll be honest with you. And it's funny, Cole Palmer, all of my strategy seems to hang on him.
Yeah.
And you would say, why? Because he's been in miserable form the last month or so, or longer. He's expensive. Just get rid of him and look at all the cash flow you have.
Yeah.
But that Spurs fixture feels good to me for Cole Palmer. And if I can keep him as a little bit of a differential and I have some confidence that he's going to play, I don't have any big problems to solve with my game week 30 team.
Right.
So I just kind of push this or kick this wild card can down the road. Right. And the whole notion of going all in game week 33 feels very good to me. But to wild card now, or even just ahead of 33, you are, as you point out, you're contending with those blanks in game week 34. Now, is that like a craven way to manage your team? Like, just go for it. Like, what are you trying to dance around here? But there does feel like if there were a more seamless non-wild cardy way to get into game week 33 and then wild card coming out of it.
Yeah.
There's something there.
But I know.
The way I look at it, it does feel like game week 33 has bench boost written all over it. And so thus wild carding in game week 31 or game week 32 to set yourself up for that game week 33 bench boost feels good, which then again makes me say I don't want a wild card in game week 30 because there's a lot of, particularly when you put bench boost into the mix, it's like a heavy degree of optimization just to make sure that almost everybody on your bench is at least going to play and get minutes.
Yeah, you want two keepers. It's kind of tricky. I mean, like for me, I guess I would have to have Nick Pope in my position, right? Because if I wanted to have two double game week keepers, I would have him, which actually isn't the worst thing. He's just expensive. That's really the only problem. But I guess I would probably, like in that situation, I would just hold on to Dean Henderson, right, and then kind of keep him for the two doubles, and then have Nick Pope, and he would just be one of my Newcastle players, which isn't, again, not a terrible spot to be in. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, if I were to wild card this week, and I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, just sort of looking at the teams that double in the weeks ahead, I think the front line is fairly straightforward. I think what I would have Mateta, Isak, and Marmoush. Those would be the three that I would have up front, right? And that would give me Mateta for the back-to-back double game weeks, Marmoush for Man City's double game week, and then Isak for the double in 32, and then the Ipswich match in 34. That would mean, I guess, not having. I mean, really, you wouldn't be passing up that much. You'd be passing up Ollie Watkins. There's no forwards on Arsenal right now. I mean, if Haaland is out, that's actually ideal from like a kind of just, it really simplifies your decision making if he's not out. And you can make an argument that you just can't have him right now anyway, right? Like if you're talking about bench boosting, a major impediment to a bench boost is having a 16 million player on your team who you don't really trust to captain anymore, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. The budget just basically is infinite if you cut Haaland out, and then it looks like Cole Palmer's not going to survive anybody's wild card at this point. So, I feel like bench boost just gets better and better the way you look at that. Yeah, I did think going through the international break that a game week 30 wild card was possible for me because I have one free transfer now going into the game week 30 deadline. And we've talked a lot about Palace's doubles. Palace have Southampton, the quote unquote best fixture of any game week in game week 30. And I have no Palace players, and I want at least two of them the way this is going. With the doubles on top of Southampton in game week 30. Yeah. So I'm kind of committed to a -4 going into game week 30. And then you say, well, why not just play the wild card? Right. And that, I think I've kind of already stated my logic as to why I don't want to wild card in game week 30, just so I can.
How many transfers do you have again?
One.
one. Yeah. I mean, because I think the other, in some ways, I actually wonder if the decision to wildcard or not could also hinge on the Haaland situation. Because if because they do play Leicester at home in game week 30. And again, along with Southampton, one of the best fixtures you can have, right? So if we know that Marmoush is going to be kind of the sole attacker up front for Man City for game week 30, that's another kind of that. Then you really have two transfers you want to make, right? With, Marmoush and then, something like you said, -4, even like a -8. It just at some point you're you might as well just wild card. I will say, if you feel like your team looks pretty good, I mean, I do think a good rule of thumb in general in fantasy is there's no point in don't wild card from a kind of theoretical, it is theoretically optimal to wild card right now. I generally feel like it's a good rule of thumb that if you look at your team and you like your 11, or you kind of like your 11 if you can make your one free transfer or whatever, right? And you like it, that's usually a reason not to wildcard, right? If you're well, if I just did this and this and this and this and this, then I could surge ever higher, right? And I feel like sometimes that's you end up just kind of trading in all the people who kind of got you to where you are. I mean, for me, I'm nowhere special, so it's easy to feel a little more well, I might as well just blow it all up right now anyway. I mean, I'm kind of looking at my squad and I'm it's a mess, right? I've got Raul away to Arsenal, Otara may or may not start, and Mboma away to Newcastle. It's not great. Palmer's still flagged. My back line, I mean, look at my back line, Brandon. I mean, I'm not going to share it with you, but I'll just tell it to you. I have Branthwaite away to Liverpool, Anthony Robinson away to Arsenal, Greaves away to Bournemouth, an injured Trent, and Dorgu, who probably won't even start for Man United. There's not a single good player in that five. I basically have no choice but to wild card. I would not be wild carding out of sheer stubbornness if I don't do it. So in some ways, it's easier for me to talk about this because there's kind of no point in me not wild carding, other than the inevitable pain of game week 34 when all of the players that I bring in don't play, right? And so I think that's and
you have no free hit left.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. I don't have a free hit yet. So I think then, again, not to be repetitive, but then that's where it's crucial, because if you've got 3 Newcastle, you're good. And then you sort of look through who else has a good fixture in 34. I think that you could look at
Fulham.
Well, yeah, I'm a little worried about. Yeah, they do. I mean, they do. Unfortunately, the fixtures leading up to that are kind of all bad, right? So I guess you could just stick like Anthony Robinson on the bench or something like that, right? But yeah, I mean, who else has a decent fixture?
Liverpool.
Yeah, Liverpool. Why does it feel like Liverpool always have a good fixture? When's the last time you looked and Liverpool had a tough fixture? I look at. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, what is the next hard fixture for them this season? Everton, Fulham. I mean, Fulham away. That's not going to be easy. West Ham,
Arsenal
Leicester,
in 36.
Spurs. Yeah, there you go. And I think Brighton away in 37 could be tough too. So. So it could be. It'll be. I mean, I kind of hope it comes to pass that Arsenal match in 36 is a genuine, there's some genuine title stakes, right? That would require a few Liverpool losses though in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens there. So any other kind of takeaways right now? I know we don't have everything kind of settled yet, but that's how things are looking at the moment.
Yeah, that is how things are looking. I do like the inclusion of Aston Villa here. Villa feels more so than Palace because Palace have been in such good form the last few game weeks that kind of all sort of made up our mind on which players we want. Villa is still something that is no one knows. No one knows who's going to start, where they're going to play, et cetera, et cetera. So I like that they're here as a wild card. And maybe if you can crack that one, particularly Villa having Southampton in game week 32, if you choose to load up on the right guys, it could really be a big boost to your season.
The other way to look at it is maybe they're the team that you kind of have to fade if you have a free hit. If you don't have a free hit, maybe you just have to just ignore their double, right? For all the reasons you just stated. I mean, I guess Ollie Watkins, he's the one player you'd really want for 33.
Your commitment to Watkins is
no. I'm just literally of the players in 33, of the players on Villa that you would want for the double, who else would you want besides Ollie Watkins?
Maybe Rashford, maybe Asensio.
Yeah, Asensio.
Maybe Rodgers.
Asensio would be the one, although there were like rotation patterns with him are still throwing me off a little bit. It's like he doesn't always start, right? And I feel like that's I mean, if they're kind of like saving him for the Champions League a little bit, it seems like. So I don't know. He did start, but then he got subbed early. So I mean, I'm sure he should start at midweek, I would think. But again, you just never really know with Emery. He's really he knows what he's doing. It's just like from a fantasy perspective, it's frustrating, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is. Hence the sort of the delight of how chaotic Villa is making it.
Yeah, that's true. It does make for a fun stress, but stress can be fun. It's sports stress. It ultimately doesn't matter. So I have no free hit, but I still have my wild card, my bench boost, and my triple captain. Right, so still got lots of bullets to fire. You have wild card, bench boost, triple captain, and a free hit. So that's actually have 4 chips to play in the final 9 weeks of the season. So you've got a lot kind of coming up.
Yeah, and I feel a little looser with my wild card strategy because I still have the free hit, because there's probably going to be two big-ish blanks.
Yeah.
34, 37 of questionable sizes. So the free hit is just my get out of jail free card for either of those weeks. Yep. So that just kind of depends on what the wildcard strategy ends up being. So yeah, I do feel kind of charged up by what's happening.
It's
entering chip season.
Yeah, you seem stressed. So, but charged up would be good. That would be
the stress would come from. I think I speak for probably everybody listening, not knowing what the plan is.
Yeah,
and I think it's okay. A lot of questions, and we'll get to some listener questions later on, is, what is the meta right now? And I think if you see a meta out there, and i.e. the optimal way to play the rest of the season, I don't believe it, because I just, as much information as we have, especially looking at Ben Crellin's chart, just don't think we have all of the pieces to create a meta.
Yeah, but again, I mean, sometimes even when you have it, it doesn't mean you can crack it, right? Like it's, so I think I think that's like, if there's like a kind of takeaway here, and I think we should move into Game Week 30, because again, it starts in 2 days, but I think I'll keep this chart up so we can see the game weeks ahead too, because I think it's useful when you think about transfers, is that, I don't know, like if you like your team for this week, don't force yourself into a wild card just because people are doing it. And if you don't like your team this week, you might as well just do a wild card and just kind of be smart when you kind of look ahead. And you're going to have to make some assumptions about when teams double and sort of trust. That's why I sort of spent a little extra time at the beginning of this podcast talking about trusting the experts, right? These people who like spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. Like they really like, they have an excellent hit rate when it comes to this stuff. It does not mean that they are always right, but in general, I really do trust that when Ben puts together one of these charts, it's probably going to be close to what we actually see, when everything's revealed. All right, so that is where we are, kind of with all the doubles and the blanks. So Game Week 30. Actually, I just want to do a quick shout out, a thank you to everyone who supports the podcast on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, you can support the podcast. End of the month is coming up by the time you listen to this pod, actually. So first of the month is always a great time to support a new pod. A little way to say thank you as the season approaches the end. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. And we've got extra podcasts that we do each week. We'll certainly have one that we do this Thursday once Game Week 30 concludes. So lots more to come. We'll sort of preview Game Week 31 as well, which will start this weekend. So, but Game Week 30, Brendan, does kick off on Tuesday. I don't know what noise I just made there. I think I said Thursday. I was like, I started to say Thursday. My brain was like, no, that's not the right word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts on Tuesday.
Hey, Cam Newton here, and this episode is brought to you by Ro. Valentine's Day is right around the corner, but that real, good, passionate romance, that strong, hot, uncontrollable romance should be a year-round pleasure. They say the best gifts are experiences. So take your girl on a ride of her life with Rose ED treatment. Rose Sparks is a 2-in-1 prescription treatment for stronger, harder erections. They hit that bloodstream faster because they dissolve right up under your tongue. Getting hard faster means more buns. After they dissolve, they typically take about 15 minutes. Rose Sparks stays in your system for 36 hours, so you can go back to back to back to back to back, back to back to back to back to back. Ro connects guys with a medical provider 100% online. So there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. If prescribed, new sexual health patients get $15 off Sparks on a recurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if Ro Sparks is right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to your door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to drive smarter with high-tech features and excellent reliability. Check out the Honda Civic, Accord, or HR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.99% APR on a 2025 Civic or a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Accord or HR-V.
See dealer for financing details. Exclude Civic SI and Type R.
And we have 3 matches. Not the kind of, usually I feel like, in my head, it feels like usually the Tuesday matches, I think it's often because Sunday is like the kind of like Super Sunday, right? Where they often do like the featured teams. And so those teams often play a little later in the week, but because of this kind of funky post-international break FA Cup thing, they didn't have to do that. So we have some pretty big games at the start of the midweek. Arsenal hosting Fulham. And I think Fulham have a shot at a Champions League spot. I'm excited about the push here. You don't, but I think it's going to be cool to see what happens.
Excited about the push. I love it. Yeah.
Hey, a push for Champions League spot is cool, I think. You're not excited about it. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. And I'm like genuinely rooting for Fulham to get a Champions League spot. I just don't, you're just a little too pessimistic for me sometimes.
Okay.
And Arsenal, I mean, whatever. They're just like playing out the stretch here, basically. But maybe they'll go on some kind of run. I don't know. I mean, who even knows what that
Arsenal also in a Champions League push. Get excited.
That's true. I mean, the 2 wins in 5. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can keep that momentum going. If they can get 3 wins in their final 9, for example, that'd be great. They are, we'll see what happens. They're 12 back of Liverpool, but again, long way to go here. Fulham right now are 4 points back of a Champions League spot. And in better form than Arsenal, actually. They have 3 wins in their last 5. So, I don't know. Do you give Fulham any kind of chance here? Obviously, the FA Cup does not.
I don't. No.
Okay. There's that classic Kelly pessimism right there.
I just
love
don't.
to see it. No, it's fine.
I just don't.
No, I like the honesty.
Yeah.
I give them a chance. I think they could get a draw out of this for sure. But again, that's
they
how I
could beat
approach
Arsenal.
sports.
They could beat Arsenal, no doubt about it.
But you don't get. They could beat Arsenal, but you don't give them a chance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't give them a rat's chance.
Yeah, they don't have a rat's chance. So I think that Arsenal are still. I think you're right when it comes to wild card and thinking about their upcoming double. Just focus on the defense, or the defense, if you will. And I would ignore the midfield and the forward lines. I mean, I tried again with my free hit in 29, and I got an assist out of Odegaard, which is fine, but it's just not a fun place to be right now with their midfield. I mean, I know people are coming back, and maybe by the time the doubles roll around, we'll have a healthy Saka. I mean, it's possible. It's not. I wouldn't bank on it, right? I mean, given how many months he's been out now, I would almost think the priority would be. I don't really know. I mean, I guess they have to just kind of push on, right? I mean, they're out of the Champions League, so it's sort of yeah, I don't know. Just go for it.
Arsenal? You talking about?
Or no, they're in the Champions League, right? Yeah, what am I talking? Yeah, so I guess the goal
was Real Madrid.
Yeah, Real Madrid in the Champions League, right? I was thinking of Liverpool for a second who got knocked. Again, it's been like 6 weeks since there was like a match that mattered that was played. So it's like going on like what's been stored in my short-term memory banks right now.
Yes,
and,
sure. We're stuffed full of Major League Soccer data at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's do a quick refresh of the Champions League bracket. Okay. So we have right now we've got Arsenal and Real Madrid, and they play a week from Tuesday. April 8th is when they play their first leg, and then PSG and Villa. So they're in the same like block of 4 teams at the top of the draw. They play Wednesday next week, and then at the bottom half we've got Barcelona, Dortmund, and Bayern, Inter. So really, honestly, a pretty cool final 8. I'm sort of I've said this many times before, but I feel like I'm more jazzed about the Champions League than I am the Premier League to a certain degree this year. Just because I don't know, I just like it's been kind of fun. I mean, maybe honestly, part of it's just Barcelona looking kind of like feisty again, right? It sort of feels like it's been like a few years since we've had like a kind of genuinely fun team, and maybe there's like a little extra fun there just because Rafinha is involved, right? And
that's like Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the screen. I know that guy.
Yeah, a little bit, but like, who didn't love Rafinha, right? I mean, he was like
you'll not catch any Rafinha hate from me.
Right, exactly. So anyway, I would think that with Arsenal, maybe the priority is to try to get him ready for a Champions League push, right? I mean, they're 12th back in the league, but they could definitely, they can beat Real Madrid. If they can find a way to beat Real Madrid, then I think they have a genuine shot to win the Champions League. I mean, I just think their defense is that good, right? That they have a chance to do it. So we'll see. A lot of people have to come back from injury though. But yeah, I think that this is a tricky match from an FPL perspective for sure. I think that. I don't know. I feel like 1-1 honestly feels like the kind of result I might expect from this match.
Arsenal Fulham we're talking about here.
Arsenal Fulham still.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think 1-1 or a 2-1 to either side feels right.
Wolves West Ham is the second of the three matches on Wednesday. Cunha's still out, so I don't know. I mean, like. And there's really just not a lot of, again, this is like we're starting to fall into that point in the season where you really do start building your teams around blanks and doubles and things like that. And what that ends up meaning is certain teams just kind of like get ignored for the rest of the season, right? Maybe until game week 38. And I think Wolves sort of fall into that category, right? Especially with Cunha out.
They do, unfortunately, because they have a really great run of fixtures coming up with West Ham, Ipswich, Spurs, United, and Leicester in that game week 34. Yeah. But I tend to agree it's just too valuable a spot. And Cunha's too bad of a boy to trust.
I guess you could argue that I don't know. That maybe like if you were wild carding in a game week 31 or 32, right? Like if you were going to wait to trigger the wild card. I mean, game week 32 wild card. The only problem with that is that, well, I guess like if you didn't have your triple captainship, a game week 32 wild card would probably be fine. I'm sort of leaning towards triple captain Isak in 32, right? And so obviously you can't play 2 chips in the same week. But I mean, there are like other players that you could consider, playing. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a double with Liverpool the rest of the season, right? So we're not going to get a Salah double.
I cannot believe I'm not going to get to play my triple captain on Salah.
Oh no, we had to get our 8 points from Arne Slot from the assistant manager chip.
Felt right.
So that's that
good
felt
at
right.
the time, didn't it?
Speaking of, I think the assistant manager. I do think that Palace, which actually has worked out already well for some people, that using the assistant manager chip in the Palace manager on Glasner in 32 and then moving it to Howe in 34 would be could be a really good use of that chip if you still have it. Because then you have
32. It's a table bonus for Glasner. That's what it is. Playing both Man City and Newcastle, if Palace beat one of those teams,
which is eminently possible.
Them being at least 5 spots below either of those teams means a big bump for Glasner as assistant manager.
Yeah, and then another double in 33, and then you could move over to Newcastle for home Ipswich, and good chance of goals there certainly, and a decent chance of a clean sheet as well, and obviously a strong chance for just a straight up win in that match. So I think that it's. And then Forest, Man United are the third match in Game Week 30. Both these squads again are teams that aren't going to. We will eventually get a double, but it's with Forest, but that one's like a lot harder to predict. I think that given all the injury issues with them right now, they're sort of like on the avoid list for me. And Bruno. I don't know. Bruno Fernandes wasn't a great run of form, but. I wouldn't necessarily. He's not a buy for me at the moment. Especially
fixtures are terrible.
Fixtures are terrible. Yeah, exactly. Forest, Man City, Newcastle. Right, three bad ones in a row. So
2 of them are away as well.
Yeah, 2 of them are away as well. So that brings us to Wednesday and Bournemouth. I think Brendan. We didn't talk too much about midfield on wild card, but I think if I do activate the wild card, which is looking increasingly likely, honestly, that I probably would still get a Bournemouth midfielder. Partially because they have some strong fixtures ahead, including playing at home in Game Week 34. But also they're just so cheap, right? It's like it's just not going to wreck your team structure to bring in, any of these kind of 6 million midfielders, right? And so, I'm still kind of. I think that Kluivert is still a great buy, even on a wild card, right? Just because, and also like you can't just ignore the non-double game week fixtures, right? Ipswich is a great fixture in Game Week 30. West Ham is a great fixture away in 31. Even Fulham in 32, I think is pretty strong fixture.
Yeah, Kluivert has just been most consistent. There are so many performers in the Bournemouth midfield, but even against City in the FA Cup, he was the assist to Evan Nielsen. His XGI is flawless, Joshua.
Yeah. So is his GI tracked.
Yes, Brandon, clean as a whistle.
Yeah, it's both GIs are doing great, which is, I think, really great news. So we talked about we talked about Villa already and how they're kind of a tough team to look at to buy. Brighton, I still don't have a handle on this team. If you have some sage advice, Brandon, I would love to hear it. I can kind of just give you the floor. I could walk away for a couple minutes. Just unload. Give me all your Brighton thoughts. Just kind of brain dump, like 3 to 5 minutes, really. And
sure.
Go as long as you want.
Insert sound effect. So in conclusion, that's why I think you should triple up on Brighton. No.
Very tricky.
There's no upside with Brighton at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tough.
Leicester in 32 at home, great. Interesting. I'm listening.
Yeah.
West Ham at home in 34. I guess there's a little bit of upside there when you think about it, when you put it that way.
Well, but, I think they're a good. They're fun to free hit, like in 30. If you're free hitting in 34, I like them for that for sure.
I do too. Yeah, that's a good call. It feels like it's all attack, whether it's Minta, Matoma, João Pedro. We'll see what Welbeck's starting situation is like as we get closer to 34, but I do not trust them for clean sheets against anyone.
So Man City, Leicester, we've talked about this fixture a little bit already. It's really, do we feel any better about the defenders? I don't, but I don't know.
I never will.
It's the same situation as before. And I think again, if Haaland is out, I think you just give Marmoush and that's it. Right, him and give Marmoush and run. Don't even try to talk yourself into a Man City midfielder because it's only going to end in heartbreak.
I'm having flashbacks to not having Bruno in Game Week 29, and I figured, what's the worst that can happen? Because Manchester United weren't in scorching hot form, and you were playing at the King Power. You think Leicester will at least have a little bit of pride. Turns out that Leicester are criminally bad. And I fear the same again with Marmoush in the City fixture, because you could level the same criticism against City, not being very consistent. Where are they dominating their opponents? And it's very hit or miss with them. Yep. And then these are the times when fantasy managers get totally punished by not just doing the obvious thing. So I'm kind of in the middle of that sort of like seesaw of just get Marmouche, you idiot, and fade Man City because Leicester.
Yeah. I think getting Marmouche is really a strong move for game week 30. Like it's like I do hear what you're saying and like the inconsistency, but he's honestly been the one bright spot, right? And he's shown even in recent weeks, right? And in fantasy and then again this weekend. It does feel like and it could just be form, and maybe he's nothing next year, right? But at the moment, it seems like he's kind of I don't know. He's stepping up.
Yeah.
And Leicester are so bad.
They are
so
bad.
Truly bad. They are like Southampton have been so bad that Leicester have skated by a little bit, right? And we all have a little bit of residual affection for Leicester. I know I do. Talked about it many times in the pod. My love of the King Power Stadium and their great supporters, and Jamie Vardy, of course, as well. But they've been terrible. They haven't been fun. Like you can't watch Leicester play. Like it's not even fun to watch their matches, right? It's like it's just so one-sided. It's
whatever. Whatever like organization they had in the back room is gone, and just seems that they're holding on to past glory at this point.
It's a bummer. So Newcastle, Brentford, we talked about that already. I think that would be another reason I think to wild. I mean, I don't know. It sort of depends on. I mean, if we could linger on Newcastle for a second, because I do think if you are wild carding, I mentioned before. It doesn't, if you have a free hit, it doesn't really matter as much. But for me, I do think that Pope and Isak are the kind of top two. If I were to have a third Newcastle player, do you think ideally you would have a midfielder, or ideally you would have a second defender? And just as a recap, they host Brentford in 30, away to Leicester in 31, and then Man United and Palace both at home in 32. So that's their next four fixtures, and those are all confirmed, locked in for the next four.
I think you double up on the attack and not the defense, because their defense is still pretty banged up.
Yeah.
And with the Lewis Hall injury and Dan Burn, as good as he is, kind of a makeshift center back pairing with Shaw. Nick Pope is not playing his best football these days. So, I just feel like there's way more upside with the attack.
It's a tricky spot, though. I think it's hard to find. Bruno Guimaraes is like a kind of high floor, low ceiling option, right? I guess Harvey Barnes might be a fun pick, right? Anthony Gordon he's actually only out for he's suspended until April 7th. So what is that? That would be the next two fixtures. So it's a little tricky. I mean, I guess the other thing you could do would be to just get two Newcastle if you were wild carding, and then plan your transfer around Gordon in 32, right? And that could be one possible move. I don't always love that because planned transfers tend to blow up in your face, right? But I think that would be one possible move. I mean, I think otherwise, I guess Bruno Guimaraes and just kind of hope that he has like
Murphy. I think run. is a pretty good option. He's the Almiron of today, where he's hit a good vein of form for whatever reason.
That's true.
This season, and he's crossing, he's scoring.
Yeah,
I like him because he skirts around that whole Barnes Gordon situation. Yeah, because he'll continue to start.
Yeah, he's a tricky player. He can be. I don't know. He can sort of frustrate watching. But I kind of like him too. He's a high energy player. Yeah, so he is kind of the Almiron. I agree. But he's played like tons of minutes this season. So I think the other, as far as Pope goes, he's actually a little cheaper than I realized. He's only 4.9 million. So it's not going to it's not really going to hurt your team value too much to bring him in.
What does that tell you?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, fair enough. He's not up from 4.5 to 4.9. I'll tell you that much. So just kind of moving through the rest of these fixtures here. So Southampton, Palace. We already talked about Palace. Liverpool, Everton. I mean, Liverpool is kind of falling off the radar a little bit. I mean, I feel like it's still kind of the same old story, right? It's I plan to captain Salah this week, and I don't plan to have any other Liverpool players.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's and the Merseyside derby is always vexed in fantasy because Everton are always the inferior team. Yet you always expect a very good and tight match.
Yeah.
It's like a true derby.
Doesn't it feel like they always play it out of the international break too? Like, it feels like there's so often.
There's never a good time, is there?
Yeah. I guess not. And then that brings us to Chelsea Spurs, the final match on Thursday. Not a ton to say fantasy wise here, I think. I mean, other than hoping we get some news on Cole Palmer, right? But again, will we get it before Tuesday? Hard to say.
Just a pic on the Instagram of him on grass with the team.
Yeah.
And but we're not going to get it before the deadline. That's the thing. Chelsea, it's going to be like state secrets with them because they have lost their edge. They're barely clinging on to like fifth place. Are they even in fifth right now? And they're going to have to
fourth.
They're in fourth. Yeah. So, but still clinging. And they're going to
three losses in 5.
Get every edge they can to hang on to a Champions League position. So I don't think we're getting any information ahead of the deadline.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They have no incentive to give anything out. That's for sure. So yeah, I think that's a tricky one. And again, there's just not a lot to look at from a fantasy perspective from either team at the moment. I mean, maybe there's some like diamonds in the rough with Spurs given their injury. I'm just like I'm not excited about either squad. I'll say that much. Yeah. I hear you about like it could be a good fixture for Palmer, but I also feel like it's kind of been a little bit of a trap for us the last few weeks, right? This like feeling like Palmer is just about to turn the corner, right? And he still doesn't have a return since game week 21. So a ridiculous stretch. I mean, he didn't play in 29, but still, a lot of blanks from 22 to 28. All right, so let's wrap things up here, Brandon, with just a couple of questions. I think we kind of talked about our transfer decisions already. We talked about wild card per Boston Prof. We talked about chip strategy. Oh, we're doing great here, Brandon.
Good. Okay, good. We're ahead of it.
GP asked if we're sold on Marmoush as a Saka enabler. What is the latest on Saka, Brandon? I mean,
he's let's see. The latest quote would be circa. It's been weeks since we have a quote from Dinnery who says he's got a good chance of returning in April. He's going to be here at the training facilities, hopefully more with the ball at his feet than he has had getting closer. He's stepping up and making very good progress. I do think you're correct that this will largely be geared toward the Champions League, and I'm fine. I guess I'm fine sort of like planning to get Saka at some point before the end of the season. But I think we've talked enough about Marmoush in this episode to say that Marmoush is not an enabler in this moment. And I wonder if this question was asked before there were details of the Haaland injury coming. Marmoush is just a good buy regardless of what your plans are with the rest of your team.
I agree. And I honestly, I don't like Saka in the only reason I would want to have Saka in FPL down the stretch would be if Arsenal won their next, several matches and Liverpool lost the next several matches, right? And then they were in a position where it really mattered. I mean, I guess the other way would be if they sort of lose massively in the first leg versus Real Madrid, right? And it kind of feels like that's it's just kind of over. Then maybe that's another. But like in general, you're down 12 points in the league, but it's a clean slate in the Champions League, right? Like, so he's back. Posted a photo back in training last week. Like, there's just no reason to risk him anytime soon, and I just don't know why you'd even really play him down the stretch.
It's also a clean slate at the start of next season. Arsenal have to be already thinking about how do they win the league next season, and if you bring Saka back in the wrong way and too soon, you could break him forever.
Exactly. That's why Phil Foden's been so bad this year, because they're bringing him along slowly for next season. They're kind of playing the long game.
The old rope-a-dope.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's just a quickie for you. Sam C asked, who would you go for as a 1 week punt before the wild card, Mateta or Marmoush?
Marmoush.
Yeah, me too. It's a tricky one, right? It's just kind of home versus away, I guess, would be the decider.
The thing there too is, I think there's enough upside with Palace against Southampton that take a hit. Get them, why not both? I say.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it's not a bad hit. The one worry with Mateta, not to complicate things again, would be leading into game week 34. The last, Palace are in an interesting spot right now where they basically aren't going to play in Europe and aren't going to get relegated, right? And the last,
they don't have a shot at the Champions League.
Not a Fulham level chance. I think they'd have to jump. They'd have to leapfrog a lot of people.
Okay.
Let me. Like, I'll take a very quick peek at the table here. Yeah, they're in 12th. I mean, it's not going to happen, right? It's.
Well, what's the point? What's the points difference between where Palace is?
Well, can I finish my thought here? So no, but they're 10 points back, but they'd also have to leap over 8 teams. So it's like, it's a hard thing to do in 8 weeks, right? Yeah. But the final match for them in 33 is away to Arsenal before they play the Champions League, the FA Cup semifinal, right? So I think there's a good chance that they field an incredibly weak team in the second leg of that double game week before game week 34, because if you have a chance to win, so if you're not going to go up or down, but you could actually win the FA Cup, I think that's a big priority. So that actually, I think, lends itself again to this idea of doubling up on Arsenal defenders, possibly, right? Because that could end up being an extremely good fixture from Arsenal from a defensive point of view if Palace field a weak squad in 33. So just something to keep in mind, I guess.
Is he on loan? Can he play against Arsenal? I just wonder if Mateta becomes fixture proof there.
I don't know. Hold on one second here. That's actually an important question. Let me see if
I'm pulling up Nketiah's.
He signed with Palace.
So your logic stands.
Yeah. 25 million. Interesting. I guess he's good enough as a backup, right? He scored. He can score goals. Like that's probably worth 25 million, even if you're not starting. Sure. Arsenal would be playing him right now. That's for sure. If they had him. All right. So let's do one more question. John Columbus says, given that some tired players have just had an extended break, who's likely to return to form, and does this affect your transfer plans? Cole Palmer, Spurs guys, others. So kind of a big question, but on the Cole Palmer front, even if he does come back, aren't you a little worried that, or do you think it's just like a full reset for him? Like, he missed game week 29, he missed international break. Maybe it's like a chance to kind of clear the cobwebs or something, just like fresh start.
It could go either way with him. Yeah, I'm worried about Palmer, and sort of like, was he going to play the way he has been playing for the last year forever and become the greatest footballer in the history of England? Not likely. Yeah. So does he just fall back down to earth and this is kind of the Cole Palmer for the rest of our lives? Probably not.
Yeah.
So if he was going to return to form, so that this is the promise of the Spurs fixture. Yes, we can agree he's been in bad form. There's nothing to say that he will return to form immediately, and there is no disrespect to Spurs. However, if it's going to happen, if Cole Palmer is going to become a fantasy asset again, now is the moment.
Yeah.
It's sort of like is it a sunk cost fallacy with Palmer where I'm just like, well, one more week, and maybe this is some sort of an advantage that I can carry over people who have tossed him aside. I don't know. I think I would tend to think it's kind of a gamble worth taking if you can,
Yeah.
There's nothing else you have to fix in your team.
That's fair. Nothing else to fix, then I do like it. Especially if I felt like he was definitely going to play. Because that would be the annoying thing, obviously, is if you don't get any information, it's you're sort of banking on him being available, right?
Yeah, and the way I'm looking at my team, so I had this thought of turning Neto into Sar and Mikolenko into Munoz. And am I getting too caught up in the Southampton of it all for Palace? And if I'm taking a hit, then it's really just Wood to Marmouche, Mikolenko to Munoz. And Palmer becomes a little bit more important there, but then I have a bench to utilize here. So if you have a bench to utilize, I think Palmer probably, if he's truly injured at the moment, I could see Palmer coming off the bench for like 20 minutes just to kind of get some legs for him. It's a little bit of a risk to start Palmer. I hate this. I hate this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's very tricky too, though. I do. You are really like going through it right now, though. It's interesting to see this happen in real time. Like you are. You're harboring a lot of worries right now,
Just trying to think through them all, just trying to think through them all. I think the desire to not wild card, you've kind of made your peace with it. It sounds,
kind of. I mean, it's easy for me because it just doesn't really, it doesn't make sense not to wild card,
right? So just the knowing that I'm going into game week 30 and I'm not going to be optimized the way a lot of people pushing for, top 100K are. Then you could move into this. You're trying to fit every scenario. And this is kind of like how I'm talking through Cole Palmer. It's like, what is every conceivable scenario? And then let's weight them. And then which is the likeliest, which one will help me the most? Is there upside? Is there downside? And I'm kind of doing that through my whole team. And it results in, the stressed out nature that you point out.
Yeah. Well, I think thankfully we only have 2 days to make up our minds. I do think this is one of the trickiest game weeks of the season, right? This like kind of moment where there's a quick turnaround to the next game week. We don't have confirmed doubles yet. These chips, even though they can make the game more fun and exciting, also add a lot of stress because you want to make sure you're using them the right way, And so I think it is a tricky stretch right now. The next couple of weeks, I think, are kind of tricky. But I think what's nice is that the Premier League's been gone for so long that it is going to be fun just to have. I guess it'll be like 5 or 6 days of matches in like a week, right? Because we'll have matches on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then again on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Actually, Leicester, Newcastle's on Monday next week. So we'll have 6 days of matches in the next 7. Be nice to have the Premier League back again. I've definitely missed it. But it sounds like I'm wrapping up the pod, Brennan. That's because I am. Thank you to everyone for listening this week. Hopefully, we've walked stuff through. I feel like this is one of those pods. Sometimes we have pods where we like really know what we're going to do going in. And sometimes we have pods where we sort of work through our own thought process in real time on the pod. That's what I feel like this one was, at least for me. And I'm just feeling great about Fulham still too, which is a good feeling.
Go Fulham.
Go Fulham. Yeah, well, I know you're not quite ready to say go Fulham, but I think it's good. We're in a good spot with me and Fulham anyway. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Of course, yes. Big thanks to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner, Lodall, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin. Nice to see you in the YouTube chat there. Brian, Bobbas Kuhn, Blair Jacobs, and Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fred Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadaki, Arishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the 3 Jims, James Murray Wood, James C., and James Holland, Scully, Craig at Total Maths Tutoring, and Francis Mann. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us wherever you get your social media. Our website is alwayscheating.com.
All right. Well, there we go. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with the podcast for our Patreon supporters. Good luck to all the wild carders. We'll be on the Discord talking things through. Once I activate my wild card, I will, which maybe I'll do tonight. Certainly I'll do it in the next 12 hours or so. I'll post it on there, and I've already missed the price changes for today, so it doesn't matter as much. But I'll post some drafts on there so people can see in case that's helpful. And good luck to everybody. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to take an adventure with rugged capability and commanding style. Check out the Honda Ridgeline, Pilot, or CR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Pilot, a 1.99% APR on a 2025 Ridgeline, or a 2.99% APR on a 2025 CR-V.
See dealer for financing details.